Alright, so here are hanging baskets, and they're not necessarily in the best of conditions. Parts of them are crispy, and the plan is to address that today. Even those two over there, also not their greatest condition. With the strawberries, we're just going to do a mild trim and reset them, and if they survive the season, they survive, that'll be nice. And this catnip, we're going to trim this back because, as you can see, these limbs got hit by the cold and the drought. So now we've got some new growth here, so we'll trim it back and hopefully be able to reset those pots a little bit better as well. So the 4 baskets will remain largely the same, just they'll be receiving a bit of a haircut and a refresh. This area over here in front of me also needs to be addressed. Those are our radishes. I'm going to start with this red basket. I'm actually going to pick it up and turn it so that we encourage it to grow more evenly spread, so all parts of the pot get equal quantities of sun, if I can pick it up. I'm just going to take my cutters, come along the edge here, and remove any dead leaves. I'm going to just take these leaves and throw them into the chicken coop so that the chickens can compost them for us. Just had a quick look at this pot, and I'm just going to do the exact same thing I did with the previous pot. I'm just going to cut it off around the edges here and flip the pot so that we change its orientation up just a little bit, enough for it to spread more evenly. So since it's easier for me to handle it from this side, it works out better if I flip it first. And I don't have to worry about hurting the remainder of my plants down here. They're not at risk or in danger. And I can just come along and clean up this edge. I think that had a spider's nest in it. I'm just dropping it on the floor here. I don't want to hold it in my hand, run the risk of being bitten. So sometimes I do just like to come and remove the dead or dying limbs on the plant, just so that it doesn't zap any extra energy from the plant itself. And it can focus its attention on the healthier or the new growth to get it through the season. So I'm expecting these strawberries to give us a good harvest, an early harvest. This particular strawberry is confused. It's already got a flower. So we're just going to let that happen as it does. I don't really play around with them all too much. Just make sure that they're well watered and taken care of. This is the catnip plant, and as you can see, it has some dead stems here, and I'm literally just going to cut those off and move on. Sadly, this area is not doing too well, but I do think there is still time to recover these 3 baskets, so we're going to give it our best shot. This is where I'm going to start today, but before I start, coffee. So while I'm waiting for the kettle to boil, I just grabbed a few bowls and some paper just to put in the bowl so that I can keep my nasturtium seeds separate from each other, because this I know for a fact is a yellow nasturtium, and this one obviously is an orange nasturtium. So we're going to see if we can keep the seeds separate and save them that way. But they do need to be labeled, and as you know, I'm not great with labeling. I try, but I'm not great. Honestly, don't know anybody who is. So I'm just going to use these pieces of paper as my markers. I'm going to write yellow and orange for the other one. So I just went in quickly to grab these 2 bottles that I'll be using a little bit later for another experiment we're running today. But for now, they should be alright to hold down these little pieces of paper, just to stop them flying all over the place. And the nasturtium seeds are not heavy enough, hopefully, to knock these Coke bottles over. I may lay them down. I'm quite clumsy. So I think just from a safety perspective, I think that's a little bit better. That's better. At least now I have coffee. I have a plan for these million bells, but we'll deal with them just now. For now, I'm definitely starting with this nasturtium here. Already messing my coffee everywhere. This table doesn't sit level. It's a little bit wonky. My plan is to harvest all these seeds and then dry them and store them for future planting. Because I already know that these seeds are acclimatized to my temperature zone. And typically in South Africa, we don't use the same zoning systems as America does. We garden more according to our region. So with the area that I garden in, I am in the USA's equivalent to a 9A or B. And in the area that I live in, there is no snow normally. And because I live in a residential area, an urban area, it's walled up, so I honestly don't deal with a lot of wind as a factor here. But I do find it interesting to follow other gardeners that have similar climate zones to me, because it helps educate me a little bit. Sometimes I follow other YouTubers that are similar to my growing zone. Sometimes they're completely different. I do like to see how other people tackle their problems, whether they're in the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere, just because it gives you a new perspective, and maybe what works for them you could adapt to work for you. Oh, shame, guys. The more the more I turn and play with this plant, the more I realize that this container is about to give up, especially as a hanging basket. So I think maybe what I might have to do is plant this out into another container once I find one that I like. I'm not in a rush right now to change it. So now that that's done, I don't have many seeds, but I do have a few, and I'm going to leave them to dry, and I will know that when they are dry I can put them in a bank bag or something, and these will be kept for growing in our garden. I think we can move on to the orange one now. I'm going to move on to this orange nasturtium and harvest as many seeds off of it as I possibly can. I'm not expecting to find too many seeds on this plant because I have already gone around and harvested a few not too long ago. And I'll just add these to their packet once they're dry. And I'm not going to do anything particularly fancy in order to dry these. I'm just putting them on a windowsill in a drafty area of our house. so that they can dry out naturally. I am pulling off even the tiny little seeds, and these are quite small in comparison to these. I'm going to let them dry out anyway. They might not be viable, but who knows, maybe they are. I mean, if I plant them, I've got a 50% chance of them working, and if I don't plant them, I have a 100% chance of it not working. So, well, give it a go. I do like to be more of an optimist about these kinds of things. Nature does what it has to. This plant is definitely healthier than the yellow one was, but I think the yellow one, because it had so many seeds on it, the plant had achieved its mission. So by trimming it back, hopefully we've reset that and it'll start flowering again for us, because I do quite like the area that they're hanging in. And it's just to remember occasionally to feed them and to make sure that they're watered, because they're not in the main line of sight for me. I don't always remember to water them. And with it being winter, I think I'm definitely going to have to make a more conscious effort to stay on top of these baskets. Okay, I'm going to leave that just like that. For now, I'm happy. And we can move on to the million bells. Earlier, you saw me take out these 2 Coke bottles. So the reason I took them out is to do with these million bells. So what I've heard is that the million bells plant doesn't actually make its own seeds. It grows from slip. And you don't have to deadhead it either. But I do, because I feel like it makes it look a little bit prettier, because in times like this where it's got these little dried out flowers, it looks a bit neglected. So occasionally I will come around and just pull off the dead pieces, just so that it doesn't look as crispy. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually try my hand at propagating this million bells. So since it doesn't make seeds, the only logical way in my mind that you could then propagate this plant would be then to slip it. So I am going to trim some of these slightly drier, more sickly limbs off, just so it doesn't look too bad. What I'm planning on doing is just trimming this overhang here as far down as I possibly can, as low as I possibly can. And then I'm going to take some of these slightly longer stems and peel back the leaves that are on here. In this case, the flower. I shouldn't have taken that one, but at least we'll give it a shot. And then I'm going to trim it with quite a longish stem, and I'm going to put them into my Coke bottles with the hope of them rooting in the water. So I'm going to maybe take 2 or 3 slips per bottle, and then I'm going to do 1 bottle with some rooting hormone in the water and 1 bottle without, and we'll see if we have any luck propagating these million bells, because if we could, it would be lovely if we could have all 3 baskets an eruption of pink, and we can hang the nasturtiums in the garden here for another pop of color and to draw in some pollinators. I don't know that this is the only color I would like, but it's the only color I have, and you do get them in a variety of different colors. We've had them in many over the years. Had I known this was a possibility, it would have been really cool. I've never done this before, so I am hoping that it will work. but there is no guarantee. I will obviously give you updates as I learn or know or discover. Because I like to take you on the journeys. If you've had experience doing this and you have maybe some direction for me to take, please let me know. Would love to increase my chances of success because this is such a pretty plant. Really is a very striking color. It would be nice to know how to propagate this. And maybe in times when the garden is feeling a little bit scarce, I can take this opportunity to add a little pop of color every now and then. Just have to go and fill these bottles and put them in a windowsill. I'm just harvesting the small patch of radishes. So far, this is what we've got. They are quite large, but that may mean that they're spongy on the inside, but we will only know once we cut them open. But I do want this space to plant a few more new seeds. They will be root vegetables. They won't necessarily be radishes. I think in this area I may be planting some turnips. Right, so I've got a little space over here that I'm going to keep these seeds on. Here are the seeds that I picked off the orange nasturtium. Those are the previous seeds. I've just combined the two, and when they're all dry, I'll package them up together. And then over here I have the yellow nasturtium seeds that we just harvested. Then just up here I have some pansy seed pods that I'm going to try and save the seeds from. I also have this bowl that's got some echinacea seeds in it and some garlic cloves and a few more echinacea. One of these is white and one of these is orange.